Have you ever seen these cute little crochet kits at places like Dollar Tree and wondered if they're even worth the $1.25 that you have to spend on them? I'm going to save us all the wondering and take it upon myself to test them out and see how it goes. Hello, welcome to Show and Tell Meg. I'm Megan and I like to make things, and I am an avid amigurumi maker. I like to knit, I like to crochet, but particularly in crocheting, I have made, I don't know how many animals, maybe upwards of 100. I know the ins and outs. I know the tricks that you need to know that make things easier. And so when I see these little kits, it's definitely not something that I need. I have so many patterns and books, and I have so many scraps and all the materials that I need to make whatever I want. But I'm always curious if these are actually a good place to start. And so when I saw these at the Dollar Tree, I was very excited. I have been hunting for them. I've had this idea for a video for, I don't know, a couple of months maybe. Shannon Talks Yarn on YouTube had an idea to do some amigurumi with these kits, and she did a review of them and she really didn't like it, but she is not an amigurumi maker. I am very much an amigurumi maker. And when I saw her review and how frustrating these kits were, I was honestly curious how it would go for someone who has made lots of amigurumi. And so I have been on the hunt for these ever since. And of course, they didn't have them. They didn't have the same kits that she used. So when I found these for these little keychains, I wanted to check them out. So I bought all 4 of the different ones that they offered. There is a little pink whale, a star, an avocado, and what is this? An orange? It's some kind of citrus fruit. These are in the craft section at the bigger Dollar Tree. I've gone to smaller ones and they didn't have them. And the nice thing is it says it includes everything that you will need. It has, let's see, what's in there? It has yarn, embroidery floss, a crochet hook, a stitch marker, a darning needle, a keychain, and some polyfill. And I mean, yeah, that is all you need. And it has the instructions to make this. That is technically all you need, but I have heard that the materials aren't exactly very great, which, I mean, this cost $1.25. So it really is probably just a you get what you pay for kind of thing. But I wanted to see how good these are for beginning crocheters. You know, when you're beginning a hobby, we have a habit of not wanting to spend a ton of money in case we don't like it. Or say if you have a kid that wants to learn how to crochet, are these good for them to start out with? I'm really genuinely curious. So I'm going to make these with the kit, with everything that's included in the kit, just to see if the tools that they give you are fighting you in making this project, for one thing. But I'm also going to give a review as to if I think these are good for beginners, and particularly kids. I have kids, they don't know how to crochet yet. I have not taught them, and I don't really want to start on something like this, but I have a pretty decent handle on what kids would be capable of reading and understanding. So if you are curious if these are going to work for you and your kids this summer, stick around and let's look in here and see what we got. I have opened the avocado one. He's really cute. I like his little face. And inside there is an instruction book, which I don't want to, don't want to show too much because you do have to pay for this. But it shows everything that should be included in the kit. And then it also has instructions that honestly look pretty good. They've got detailed photos of how it's supposed to look the whole way. So that's surprising. I was expecting this to be, black and white, just words, but that's pretty cool. And then inside the bag, we have the yarn, which is definitely acrylic, but it's soft. Like, I kind of dig this neon greeny yellow. And then just basic embroidery floss. So these feel pretty good. So my first impression of the yarn is it's perfectly adequate acrylic yarn. Nothing to write home about, nothing to not write home about, which is good. And then you have a little bit of polyfill. Depending on the size of this thing, this might not be enough. Just looking at that, I like to really overly stuff my amigurumi. Over time, polyfill will collapse. And so this is a tiny little puff of polyfill. We're going to see. We're going to see if I'm wrong or if this is enough. And very thankfully, this includes a metal crochet hook. The other kit that Shannon Talks Yarn used had a plastic crochet hook, and those things are just a disaster. I have never had a good experience with a plastic crochet hook. The metal ones, they glide so much easier. And yeah, this is a 3mm metal crochet hook. Looks pretty standard. Everything feels nice and smooth. I don't feel anything that's going to snag. So that's a very good sign. And then we have a plastic darning needle, a plastic stitch marker, which I have like a million of these, and then a keychain, key ring. And coming from what I do as a job, I can tell you right now that this key ring is a disaster waiting to happen. I work in the jewelry industry, and just straight off, these rings are not closed all the way. So I'm going to take some needle nose pliers at the very least and close that up. One good snag and all your work will be gone. So that's something to keep in mind with these. You might, if you get into making these kinds of things, or if your kid does and you don't want to risk losing it when you put it on a purse or a backpack or a keychain, you might want to invest in some heavy stainless steel rings. You can use the chain still, just take that chain off of these, and the stainless steel is so much harder to bend than these guys. So there's a little industry tip for you. My initial unboxing impression is pretty good. And when I really think about it, the yarn is very likely the same yarn that they sell for $1.25 a skein. The Premier Yarns, what is it? Just Yarn, I think is what they call it. It's probably the same thing because, I mean, if you're having that made there already, you'd probably use the same yarn. So far, everything seems pretty good, to be quite frank. I was expecting it to not be this nice material. So now we just have to get crocheting and see how it goes. I just opened this and was just going to start crocheting. And the first direction is to make 5 stitches into a magic ring. And so I was unwinding this part like it was done like these, where it was kind of tied together. And I was trying to find the end, and I happened to see that this end already has a slip knot. I'm trying to see if you can see that. So that's pretty stinking awesome. If you were brand new and didn't know how to make a magic ring, this is definitely a major mark in this kit's favor, that you can just do that, do your single crochet stitches, and then pull this snug, and you're good to go. So definitely something good so far. And I got them all done. I am actually very pleased with not only how these all turned out, but the kits themselves. So the avocado was first. That's the one that I showed you most of the crocheting process. Very easy. It's a little bit of a bean kind of shape, and the directions were very clear. I managed to make this in about an hour. In fact, all of these took roughly an hour each. I spread it out over quite a while. This was something that I started filming in like May, and I didn't finish these until July, but such is life sometimes. But here is the whale. He's got a cute little tail and his little fins. And so just to give you an idea, my version and the example on the box, I think it came out kind of just like they wanted, except that I put his eyes closer together and gave him a smile, because why wouldn't I, right? The other ones I did were this citrus fruit. We looked it up because this is orange with a yellowy green inside, and I'm like, that's not an actual citrus fruit. It is apparently. This is a limequat. So here's my limequat keychain. I did do mine a little differently on the front, simply because it suggests that you just put these huge stitches of yarn, and if you're going to use this as a keychain, that's going to get hung on everything. So I did chain stitch embroidery, which honestly probably took about the same amount of time that these stitches would, and I just know that over time it's going to hold up a lot better. So this is my limequat, and I think it came out very cute. Example on mine, pretty close. And the final one was the star, which turned out fine. It turned out just like the package, and unfortunately that's the one package I don't have with me right now, so I can't hold it up and show you. But it looks just like it. This was the biggest pain in the butt to do. These others were all done in the round, you know, I mean, these are all round shapes. So I was able to increase, decrease a little, stuff it, so finish it up, you know, it's all enclosed in one thing. To make a star, you have to first make these circles in the center, 2 of them, and then each of those have to have all of these grow off of them. So I had to make 2 flat pieces, which wasn't a pain, that was fine, but sewing them together took the longest out of any of them. So there is stitching all in between all of these, and that was just a pain. But at that point I was committed to this project and I wanted to get it done. So it's not like it was the end of the world. This is a very small little guy, but he did come out really cute. He's kind of a weird greenish color, I will say. It's the same, well, it's not the same yarn as the avocado. It's definitely a little different, but it's definitely more greeny than what I think of as a star. But I mean, who's to say what color a star is anyway, right? So yeah, I honestly really enjoyed this whole project. They were cute little things to make to distract me in a time when things were not going well. And if you hear anything humming in the background, I do apologize. My air conditioner is out. And so I am currently sitting in my house that is 92 degrees inside. This is Florida. So it's not just, oh, it's a little warm. No, it's freaking hot. And so I have a little air conditioning unit thing literally sitting right next to me. So I apologize if there's a hum, but it could not be avoided if I wanted to have this video out. So, but while my house was hot and I couldn't really work on anything else, I grabbed these while we sat and suffered on the couch watching a movie. And they were mindless enough that I could do it, you know, like I'm not very physically happy, but I can do this cute little thing and distract me. And it was kind of the perfect project for that. As far as this review and the materials and things like that, I've got nothing bad to say. Everything worked out great. I did save the yarn that was left over in the end. So I made the avocado exactly as specified in the pattern, and this is what I have left. So I had plenty of yarn. There was no risk of it running out, which was a worry. Like any kind of little kit like this, particularly a cheaper one, I'm not necessarily expecting accuracy in how much yarn they give you, but I mean, I could almost, I mean, I can't make another avocado because this is almost gone, but I definitely had double the amount of the lighter green that I needed and the brown. I mean, you could make something else out of this. So I'll save this in my stash for other amigurumi in the future. And as far as the stuffing, I stuffed that entire bag into this guy, and he's he's got a little give, but he's firm. So it was literally the perfect amount of polyfill that they included, which that's what I was most skeptical about, was if I was going to have to add my own, because I like things to be stuffed very firmly. I said already, especially something that's getting grabbed and squeezed a lot, polyfill will collapse over time. So, I mean, there's a bit of give in this one, but I'm willing to deal with that. That's fine. It's not anything crazy. I also stuffed all of that polyfill in this guy, and see how much firmer this one is. And I had to stuff. So it was the perfect amount. I did end up with a little excess on, I think, the star, which is the one that I don't have the excess materials with me because it's at my parents' house where we're staying while we don't want to suffer in this heat. But yeah, the loquat, or no, loquat, the lime quat is also very firm. I used all of the stuffing there, and the star is perfectly firm. He ended up with a little bit of extra. Hook-wise, I stuck with the same hooks the whole time. These are literally exactly the same as the Boy brand hooks that I typically use. That is my preference. I know some people hate these. I'm actually planning on making a video in the future showing why I love these and how they work out very ergonomically for my hands. So stay tuned for that if you want to see how I do that. But yeah, this worked perfect. It did not bend. These stitches are pretty tight because this is such small yarn and you want a very tight gauge, and this held up great. It went into all the stitches I needed it to. It's a great little crochet hook. Why try to improve something that works really well already? And this is kind of the poster child of that. I will confess that I did ditch the plastic needle. I hate these things so much. Threading them is a chore, and they bend. I mean, no, especially for something this tight. I did switch to a metal darning needle like I always use. So this is kind of the only part of the kit that I'm like, do better, y'all. Like, I would rather pay $2 instead of $1.25 if it meant that I got a decent metal darning needle. And directions wise, they're really good. I mean, I was able to make these exactly like the examples. On the whale, there was a spot in the pattern where they forgot to mention something. I think it was telling you how to close up the end or something like that. That if you've ever made any amigurumi before, then you know what comes next. You know the end, but they didn't put that. And so for beginners or for kids, there was also another spot. I can't remember exactly which one it was. Heat has just zapped my memory, but there was another spot that something was missing. Like I needed to know how to get to a certain area to do something. I can't exactly remember. And then it doesn't give super detailed directions. Like when you make this piece separate and it just says sew it on, it does show you pictures, but that could be a little better. Like if this was going to be for a child who has not done amigurumi before, it needs to be a little more detailed. I can say that pretty confidently. If your kids have made amigurumi before, particularly small, tight, like small yarn, I'm talking, and tight weave, little object amigurumi before, then these would be great. Like maybe an older kid, 10 to 12, who has done this before, who knows their way around a crochet hook a bit. These are great. You really cannot beat this for $1.25. I mean, $1.25 in an hour, and I have a cute little keychain. So for adults, absolutely, I think that you could figure it out, even if you weren't a super experienced crocheter. That said, if you are a total beginner, I don't recommend learning on these, even if you are an adult. I personally, I've made a zillion amigurumi, but I have never made a ton in small yarn and in a tight gauge. I personally started out with Fresh Stitches patterns, which I plan on doing a review of her patterns later on. Her patterns are amazing. She has classes on Craftsy. That's how I learned how to do all of this. And she has you use worsted weight with a size H hook. And that way you're not cramming some teeny little hook into a tiny little stitch. It's so much easier to see your stitches. It's so much more, it doesn't hurt your hands as much as holding something this small and cramming this hook in there. So if you are a total beginner, I don't really recommend these. If you've done a few projects in the bigger yarn and you decide that you want to try out smaller, then these are absolutely the way to go. I would say the avocado, he was super easy. That would be a perfect intermediate, not intermediate, but advanced beginner project. This would be a great one for anybody that has made a few things before, maybe in larger yarn, you want to try out doing a thinner yarn. This would be perfect. So I really have no bad things to say about these kits, which I'm shocked. I thought that I was going to be ripping these things apart. I mean, what do you expect for $1.25? I expected much less than this for $1.25. I am super pleased with all of my little creatures, and I think that they're going to make fun gifts. So yeah, if you just want a quick summer project, you can't miss with these. So that's all I have for you today. If you like my content, please do give me a like and subscribe to see what things I'm going to make in the future. I have another Dollar Tree amigurumi kit, so if you want to see about that one, I only recently found it. So that's going to be coming in the future, as well as lots of other things. I am always making new items. So if you are interested in that, please do subscribe, hang around, see what else I'm making. Until next time I see you, I hope that you have a fantastic and cool summer crocheting all the cute little objects.